Well, obviously I'm not here today. I'm in Longmont, unfortunately, at an all-day online learning strategic planning meeting. I wish I were here. I'll be back on Monday to pick up wherever you leave off today. I'm just going to take, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes to kind of set the stage for the discussion today. We've been talking about epistemology, theory of knowledge, and we spent Wednesday kind of getting some background on this idea of skepticism, that if we want to tackle any of these questions, we first have to assess the current beliefs we have and decide which ones of them are founded, which ones of them might be unfounded. And we started by looking at Rene Descartes. He's a skeptic who wants to challenge his current beliefs with what? The hope that by ridding myself of all of my current opinions, if they can be doubted, I might be able to find some firm footing to build up from. And embedded in this is the assumption that there is some kind of truth that's objective, that we'll all agree with, that's not subjective, that if we're careful, we can find some sort of truth to build on. We'll see about that. Descartes also says that he's able to do this only because he has freed himself from cares and he's not disturbed by passions. What he really says here is, I know that in order to do this hard work of epistemology, I need to set aside my own biases and emotions. I mean, I think Descartes clearly knows that a lot of his personal beliefs are really meaningful and he wants them to be true, but he's saying, I need to set aside those passions, those biases, those personal feelings. I just need to use my ability to reason and think logically and go from there. And I think we want to, I won't say challenge what Descartes is saying, but Descartes is really proposing this idea that reason is supreme. And this is an idea that has run through Western philosophy since Plato. Emotions, biases, subjective personal feelings, these sorts of things, philosophers throughout the Western tradition have simply said just don't matter. In fact, they get in the way of actual thinking. So Descartes following along, and I think from the reading you did for today, it's not clear whether what Descartes is proposing is possible, or if it is possible, it certainly doesn't seem like it's easy to separate our emotions and biases from our ability to think critically and rationally. Descartes says, well, he trusts the senses. In the past, anyway, he looks back and says, most of the things I believe because I've seen them or read them, and they've come in through the senses. So one of the things we want to do as we move forward is question this. Philosophers challenge assumptions. What we're going to want to do is challenge the assumption that we should trust the senses. John Locke, also a skeptic, but hoping that he can start with a blank slate and find some objective knowledge and demonstrate where knowledge comes from. And as we know, John Locke is also interested in experience. So again, we're going to want to think about challenging this idea that we should trust our senses. Plato says, knowledge is justified true belief. Well, we know what a belief is, just believing something is true. And we can imagine what a true belief is. It's a belief that actually matches up with reality. Plato says that's not enough. Why? Because you could have simply guessed, or you might believe something is true when it is true, but your reasons are totally wrong. And there's a couple of great examples Palmer offers of that. So take a look at the book if you need more on that. But what Plato says is knowledge has to be justified. You have to be able to give the explanation, the logos for something. You have to be able to explain why something's true. And Plato assumes that when you hear a proper justification for a truth, that you'll accept it, because Plato thinks there actually is something called the truth. And that, one, we want to know what's true, and that once we understand the proper explanation, an intelligent person will be led inexorably toward that truth. So what does Plato think? This process of philosophy where we're challenging each other's beliefs, we will find the proper explanations for the truth, and we will move slowly over historical time, maybe even personal time, toward the truth, because a rational, intelligent person will recognize good evidence when it's there. William Clifford says we shouldn't believe things on insufficient evidence. Clearly, this implies that there is such a thing called sufficient evidence. He doesn't say what it is, but I think it's clear that Clifford assumes that smart people working together will be able to recognize what would count as sufficient evidence for particular kinds of claims. Russell says something, very similar. He says we should have good grounds for our beliefs, and we shouldn't believe something when we don't have good grounds for our beliefs. So again, Russell is assuming that there is such a thing as a good, proper, justified ground for believing something. So all of these thinkers, Plato, Bertrand Russell, Descartes, William Clifford, Socrates, John Locke, they're all interested in assessing evidence and argument. They all think that arguments, if done properly, should lead to the truth. They all think, as philosophers, that we will follow arguments where they lead. We may start off not knowing the truth. We may start off holding false beliefs, but if provided sufficient evidence, clear arguments, we will be capable of getting rid of those false ideas and following these arguments toward the truth. They want to seek truth through skepticism and reason. And again, this is a thread that has gone through philosophy at least since 350 BC for 2,500 years. Is there such a thing as pure impersonal reason? Again, this has been an assumption in philosophy forever. They don't mean it's easy, right, to kind of rid ourselves of our emotions and our biases, but they think it's possible and good. Almost every Western philosopher says the right way to reason is to set aside your personal biases and emotions and follow the arguments where they lead, follow the facts where they go. We want to challenge that. We want to think about that. So have fun today, and I'll see you on Monday.